Hey there, Flo again. Another Bible reading stream. I wanted to see how quickly I could get back online. I actually sort of have to wait a little while because some of the streaming services don't end the stream automatically, so I have to make sure that they stop so I can restart again. Okay, so I think I got everything ready. So we're going to be reading Deuteronomy chapter 17 to 20 and John 16, picking up where we left off last one. This reading and the next reading, actually every reading this 15th week have all been kind of the same as far as selection, which makes it easier. Reading in Deuteronomy and John. I think it's chapter 17 of John that is one of my favorites, if I remember right. It's where Jesus prays. I think. Anyway, that'll be the next time. Let's see. All right, so do a quick prayer like usual and then get into the reading. Thank you, Lord, that we have the freedom to read your word and seek you without consequence. I pray for people around the world that can't so easily express their faith, that you would keep them strong under persecution, and pray that your word would spread like wildfire and that many people will be saved and follow you, and that the countries where they live would be transformed in a good way. And I know difficulties are coming our way as well. It's coming everywhere in the world fairly soon, possibly in our lifetime. Pray that you prepare our hearts that we would not be easily broken by difficult times. And we know that it's going to happen, and do ask for you to be merciful and spare us, but we know it's part of your plan as well to allow this to be in the end times, and just give us strength, help us to pursue you relentlessly so that we are fully strengthened by your Spirit and your word. Help us to be a good example and not be lazy. And help us to learn from your word today. Help me to read it well and to absorb some of it myself. And give me wisdom to know which activities to pursue that honor you and that prepare me for what's coming next. Thank you for all this in Jesus' name, amen. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 17. You shall not sacrifice to the Lord your God an ox or a sheep with any defect or serious flaw, for that is detestable to the Lord your God. If a man or woman among you let me start that verse over. If a man or woman among you in one of the towns that the Lord your God gives you is found doing evil in the sight of the Lord your God by transgressing his covenant and going to worship other gods, bowing down to them, or to the sun or moon, or any of the host of heaven, which I have forbidden. And if it is reported and you hear about it, you must investigate it thoroughly. If the report is true and such an abomination has happened in Israel, you must bring out to your gates the man or woman who has done this evil thing, and you must stone that person to death. On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses a man shall be put to death, but he shall not be executed on the testimony of a lone witness. The hands of the witnesses shall be the first in putting him to death, and after that, the hands of all the people. So you must purge the evil from among you. If a case is too difficult for you to judge whether the controversy within your gates is regarding bloodshed, lawsuits, or assaults, you must go up to the place the Lord your God will choose. You were to go to the Levitical priests and to the judge who presides at that time. Inquire of them, and they will give you a verdict in the case. You must abide by the verdict they give you at the place the Lord will choose. Be careful to do everything they instruct you, according to the terms of law they give you, or they give, and the verdict they proclaim. Do not turn aside to the right or to the left from the decision they declare to you. But the man who acts presumptuously, refusing to listen either to the priest who stands there to serve the Lord your God, or to the judge, must be put to death. You must purge the evil from Israel. Then all the people will hear and be afraid, and will no longer behave arrogantly. When you enter the land that the Lord your God is giving you, and have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, "Let us set a king over us like all the nations around us," you are to appoint over yourselves the king whom the Lord your God shall choose. Appoint a king from among your brothers. You are not to set over yourselves a foreigner who is not one of your brothers. But the king must not acquire many horses for himself, or send the people back to Egypt to acquire more horses. For the Lord has said, "You are never to go back that way again." He must not take many wives for himself, lest his heart go astray. He must not accumulate for himself large amounts of silver and gold. When he is seated on his royal throne, he must write for himself a copy of this instruction on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priests. It is to remain with him, and he is to read from it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to fear the Lord his God by carefully observing all the words of this instruction and these statutes. Then his heart will not be exalted above his countrymen, and he will not turn aside from the commandment to the right or to the left, in order that he and his sons may reign many years over his kingdom in Israel. That's interesting. Apparently the wisest man who ever lived, Solomon, either did not read this as he was instructed, or he just paid no attention to it. And that was his downfall. So as we know, we'll read this later, but Solomon was the wisest man who lived. He was visited by God in a vision or something, and God said, almost like a genie, he said, whatever you ask, I'll give you. And Solomon asked for wisdom, and God gave him ridiculous amounts of wisdom. Interestingly enough, though, God gave him more than he asked for because he was humble and asked for wisdom instead of gold and power and all that stuff. God gave him, blessed him with all the stuff that he didn't even ask for. But interestingly, that was probably some kind of test. I don't know if there's a verse that supports that, but in a way it's kind of not really a blessing to have all those things, because it's going to cause you to be arrogant. It says right here. Let's see, verse 16 to 18. So it says, the king must not acquire many horses for himself, or send the people back to Egypt. And verse 17, he must not take many wives for himself, lest his heart go astray. He must not accumulate for himself large amounts of silver and gold. That's exactly like Deuteronomy 17:17 is the very verse that is written for Solomon alone. It probably is like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a guy named Solomon. I'm aware of that. I wrote a verse for that. Here you go. But unfortunately, Solomon did not listen to Moses. He had, I think, about 1,000 wives. I don't know. Some of them were concubines, but yeah, it's ridiculous. An absurd number of wives. And his heart did go astray. He actually did exactly what this passage instructs not to do. And technically, Solomon would have rightfully been stoned. I don't know how he got away with it, but he should have been stoned for what he did, because he followed other gods. And worse yet, he was the king of Israel, setting a terrible example for them. And that's the reason why, for many, many kings after that, the kingdom was split pretty much right after Solomon into north and south, and all the sons of the kings were just most of them anyway, were pretty bad. They pretty much lost track of the law, the book of Moses, and later on they had to recover it because it had just been thrown on the top shelf or buried or, just disregarded basically. And so, yeah, we'll get to read that fun times pretty soon. But anyway, yeah, I don't know that I'd noticed that there's actually a verse specifically for Solomon. Like he was warned, God was gracious to him by writing Deuteronomy 17:17. It was written just for him, and he did not regard it. In fact, not only is it written for him, but in the next verse it says, as you become king, write this down. Like you have to write it out in presence of the priests, just to make sure that it's kind of like when the president puts his hand on the Bible and gives an oath when he enters the office. It's the same kind of thing. Like it's basically, I claim these promises and these instructions for myself. I'm not above the law. I will follow it, and I will honor the office that I have taken. And they take it even further in Israel, where the king is supposed to actually write it out, a copy of the law. I don't know how much of the law, maybe just this part, or if it's the whole thing, that's crazy. That would take a long time. But I think that would be a just thing to do, because the king is the one that's supposed to be the example for all the people and leading them in the way they go. And if he doesn't even know the law, then they're toast. Anyway, that's a good verse there. All right, so let's see. Let's go on to chapter 18. The Levitical priests, indeed, the whole tribe of Levi, shall have no portion or inheritance with Israel. They are to eat the offerings made by fire to the Lord. That is their inheritance. Although they have no inheritance among their brothers, the Lord is their inheritance, as he promised them. This shall be the priest's share from the people who offer a sacrifice, whether a bull or a sheep. The priests are to be given the shoulder, the jowls, and the stomach. You are to give them the first fruits of your grain, new wine and oil, and the first wool sheared from your flock. For the Lord your God has chosen Levi and his sons out of all your tribes to stand and minister in his name for all time. Now if a Levite moves from any town of residence throughout Israel and comes in all earnestness to the place the Lord will choose, then he shall serve in the name of the Lord his God like all his fellow Levites who stand there before the Lord. They shall eat equal portions, even though he has received money from the sale of his father's estate. When you enter the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices his son or daughter in the fire, practices divination or conjury, interprets omens, practices sorcery, casts spells, consults a medium or spiritist, or inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is detestable to the Lord. And because of these detestable things, the Lord your God is driving out the nations before you. You must be blameless before the Lord your God. Though these nations which you will dispossess listen to conjurers and diviners, the Lord your God has not permitted you to do so. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your brothers. You must listen to him. This is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God or see this great fire any more, so that we will not die. Then the Lord said to me, they have spoken well. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command him. And I will hold accountable anyone who does not listen to my words that the prophet speaks in my name. But if any prophet dares to speak a message in my name that I have not commanded him to speak, or to speak in the name of other gods, that prophet must be put to death. You may ask in your heart, how can we recognize a message that the Lord has not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord and the message does not come to pass or come true, that is a message the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken presumptuously. Do not be afraid of him. This is a message for every time, I'm sure, but we have many of these days. I was just talking about this with somebody on my stream a few days ago, where it's kind of become burdensome to hear people talking about the end times, because the vast majority of the time they're just guessing. Like, they're watching the news and thinking, oh, that sounds kind of like Revelation chapter 16, or whatever they're talking about. But they're making just wild speculations, and they're doing it to get attention for themselves or to look wise. Most of them don't know what they're talking about, because you'll find that this Deuteronomy 18:22 is well spoken of them. Basically, if what they say does not come true, then they are not speaking for the Lord, because God's word always comes true. You'll never find a prophecy in scripture that, like, oops, that one never happened because God made a mistake. No, that's not how God sees everything before it happens. He exists outside of time. So there's no way to for him to make that kind of mistake. He can't accidentally predict something that doesn't happen. So that's how you know when a person is not speaking in the place of God. Or it's especially important if somebody actually claims that, which people like Benny Hinn, for example, he's a false prophet, a false teacher. This is very apparent. It's not really in question anymore. Pretty much everybody is aware. If you're not, and you are following or watching the sermons or messages of Benny Hinn, I assure you, you should not be. And do a little bit of research. You'll find that he's made many false prophecies. He's manipulated people, all sorts of bad stuff. There's a lot of other false teachers like him, but we do need to be careful who we put our trust in. Don't look for someone who's flashy and a good speaker, Look for someone who honors the word of the Lord and doesn't speak presumptuously and doesn't use their ministry for financial gain. That's also quite vile. Anyway, that's it for chapter 18. We got 2 more to go, so this will be a little bit longer reading than last time, but they're kind of short chapters, so they're all about 20, early 20 verses for each of them. So let's go on to Deuteronomy 19. When the Lord your God has cut off the nations whose land he is giving you, and when you have driven them out and settled in their cities and houses, when you are to set apart for yourselves 3 cities within the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. Sorry, I need to read that all over again, because I read then instead of or when instead of then, and it changed the whole meaning. It's like, wait, what? Let's start over. When the Lord your God has cut off the nations whose land he is giving you, and when you have driven them out and settled in their cities and houses, then you are to set apart for yourselves 3 cities within the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. You are to build roads for yourselves and divide into 3 regions the land that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, so that any manslayer can flee to these cities. Now this is the situation regarding the manslayer who flees to one of these cities to save his life, having killed his neighbor accidentally without intending to harm him. If he goes into the forest with his neighbor to cut timber and swings his axe to chop down a tree, but the blade flies off the handle and strikes and kills his neighbor, he may flee to one of these cities to save his life. Otherwise, the avenger of blood might pursue the manslayer in a rage, overtake him if the distance is great, and strike him dead, though he did not deserve to die, since he did not intend any harm. This is why I am commanding you to set apart for yourselves 3 cities, and if the Lord your God enlarges your territory, as he swore to your fathers, and gives you all the land he promised them, and if you carefully keep all these commandments I am giving you today, loving the Lord your God and walking in his ways at all times. Then you are to add 3 more cities to these 3. Thus innocent blood will not be shed in the land that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, so that you will not be guilty of bloodshed. If, however, a man hates his neighbor and lies in wait, attacks him and kills him, and then flees to one of these cities, the elders of his city must send for him, bring him back, and hand him over to the avenger of blood to die. You must show him no pity. You are to purge from Israel the guilt of shedding innocent blood, that it may go well with you. You must not move your neighbor's boundary marker, which was set up by your ancestors to mark the inheritance you shall receive in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. A lone witness is not sufficient to establish any wrongdoing or sin against a man, regardless of what offense he may have committed. A matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If a false witness testifies against someone, accusing him of a crime, both parties to the dispute must stand in the presence of the Lord before the priests and judges who are in office at that time. The judges shall investigate thoroughly, and if the witness is proven to be a liar who has falsely accused his brother, you must do to him as he intended to do to his brother, so you must purge the evil from among you. Then the rest of the people will hear and be afraid, and they will never again do anything so evil among you. You must show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and foot for foot. All right. And of course, we know that Jesus kind of makes a addendum to that verse later, which I think we've already maybe read that. Okay, let's go on to Deuteronomy chapter 20. When you go out to war against your enemies and see horses, chariots, and an army larger than yours, do not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt is with you. When you are about to go into battle, the priest is to come forward and address the army, saying to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are going into battle with your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted or afraid. Do not be alarmed or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you the victory. Furthermore, the officers are to address the army, saying, Has any man built a new house and not dedicated it? Let him return home, or he may die in battle, and another man dedicate it. Has any man planted a vineyard and not begun to enjoy its fruit? Let him return home, or he may die in battle, and another man enjoy its fruit. Has any man become pledged to a woman and not married her? Let him return home, or he may die in battle, and another man marry her. Then the officers shall speak further to the army, saying, Is any man afraid or faint-hearted? Let him return home, so that the hearts of his brothers will not melt like his own. When the officers have finished addressing the army, they are to appoint commanders to lead it. When you approach a city to fight against it, you are to make an offer of peace. If they accept your offer of peace and open their gates, all the people there will become forced laborers to serve you. But if they refuse to make peace with you and wage war against you, lay siege to that city. When the Lord your God has delivered it into your hand, you must put every male to the sword. But the women, children, livestock, and whatever else is in the city, all its spoil, you may take as plunder, and you shall use the spoil of your enemies that the Lord your God gives you. This is how you are to treat all the cities that are far away from you and do not belong to the nations nearby. However, in the cities of the nations that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, you must not leave alive anything that breathes, for you must devote them to complete destruction, the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded you, so that they cannot teach you to do all the detestable things they do for their gods, and so cause you to sin against the Lord your God. When you lay siege to a city for an extended time while fighting against it to capture it, you must not destroy its trees by putting an axe to them, because you can eat their fruit. You must not cut them down. Are the trees of the field human, that you should besiege them? But you may destroy the trees that you know do not produce fruit. Use them to build siege works against the city that is waging war against you until it falls. All right, that's Deuteronomy chapter 20. And we got John chapter 16. I have told you these things so that you will not fall away. They will put you out of the synagogues. In fact, a time is coming when anyone who kills you will think he is offering a service to God. They will do these things because they have not known the Father or me. But I have told you these things so that when their hour comes, you will remember that I told you about them. I did not tell you these things from the beginning because I was with you. Now, however, I am going to him who sent me, yet none of you asks me, "Where are you going?" Instead, your hearts are filled with sorrow because I have told you these things. But I tell you the truth, it is for your benefit that I am going away. Unless I go away, the advocate will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. And when he comes, he will convict the world in regard to sin and righteousness and judgment. In regard to sin, because they do not believe in me. In regard to righteousness, because I am going to the Father, and you will no longer see me. And in regard to judgment, because the prince of this world has been condemned. I still have much to tell you, but you cannot yet bear to hear it. However, when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth, for he will not speak on his own, but he will speak what he hears, and he will declare to you what is to come. He will glorify me by taking from what is mine and disclosing it to you. Everything that belongs to the Father is mine. That is why I said that the Spirit will take from what is mine and disclose it to you. In a little while you will see me no more, and then after a little while you will see me. Then some of his disciples asked one another, Why is he telling us in a little while you will not see me, and then after a little while you will see me? And because I am going to the Father, they kept asking, Why is he saying a little while? We do not understand what he is saying. Aware that they wanted to question him, Jesus said to them, Are you asking one another why I said, In a little while you will not see me, and then after a little while you will see me? Truly, truly, I tell you, you will weep and wail while the world rejoices. You will grieve, but your grief will turn to joy. A woman has pain in childbirth because her time has come. But when she brings forth her child, she forgets her anguish because of her joy that a child has been born into the world. So also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. In that day you will no longer ask me anything. Truly, truly, I tell you, whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. Until now you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, so that your joy may be complete. I have spoken these things to you in figures of speech. An hour is coming when I will no longer speak to you this way, but will tell you plainly about the Father. In that day you will ask in my name. I am not saying that I will ask the Father on your behalf, for the Father himself loves you, because you have loved me and have believed that I came from God. I came from the Father and entered the world. In turn, I will leave the world and go to the Father. His disciples said, See, now you are speaking plainly and without figures of speech. Now we understand that you know all things, and that you have no need for anyone to question you. Because of this, we believe that you came from God. Do you finally believe? Jesus replied. Look, an hour is coming and has already come when you will be scattered, each to his own home, and you will leave me all alone. Yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take courage. I have overcome the world. That's a good verse. Matthew 16:33. No, not Matthew, John. It's funny, there's like a Matthew 16:33 also, isn't there? It seems like it. Anyway, John 16:33. All right, so that's it for this reading. I don't know if I'm going to do another reading or not. I'm actually thinking of playing another game, possibly, just for something to do. So we'll see about that. I have one in mind that I might turn on a little bit later, but I need to eat something, and I'll decide if I'm going to do that or not. I don't know yet. But anyway, that's it for the reading today, I think, and I'll probably do some more tomorrow. But thanks for joining me, and I will see y'all next time.